I've been ruminating for several days now on how I can do justice to a recent experience I feel compelled to share in a video clip. It's not that the event has any particular significance in the greater scheme of things, but if we pay our fullest attention to similar events, it could shatter the very structure of our beliefs. Last week I was installing a light fitting in the passageway between the main cabin and the aft cabin here aboard sailing vessel Ron. I was cleverly going to make use of an 8mm bolt that was protruding from the ceiling. The plan was to remove the 8mm nut from the bolt, put an oversized washer on the bolt, and make a fitting using the bolt to attach the bulb to. It's really a very simple project. I'm generally not all that clumsy, but wouldn't you know it, as soon as I removed the nut from the bolt, it slipped out from between my fingers and fell to the floor. It landed between my feet in the tiny space. I bent down to grab it, but the nut was nowhere to be found. It had simply vanished. I was not really all that surprised, and I didn't waste much time looking for it. I went up to the workshop in the forward cabin and stole an 8mm nut from a bolt, something I generally try to avoid. It only took me a few more minutes to finish the job, and then flip the switch to admire the brightly lit passageway. A couple of days later, maybe it was even the next day, I can't remember, I was idly leaning against the countertop in the galley. Suddenly, something caught my eye just to the left of me, at waist level. Next to where I was standing is a homemade gimbaled stove support, whose function is to keep pots and pans from flying off the stove when the boat is rolling around well underway. I had mounted a horizontal 8mm threaded rod on two aluminum upright flanges on either side of the support structure, at the front of the support. I had left about 2 centimeters of extra rod on either side of the uprights. When the image I was focusing on finally coalesced, I laughed out loud. Here, loosely threaded into the rod and nearest my hand, was an 8mm nut, which I can assure you I didn't put there. There's absolutely no rational way of making sense out of it. Fortunately, I don't try. To say that I was surprised to see the nut would be a lie, given all the things that happened with uncanny regularity around here. Life aboard Ron seems to be a sort of modernized version of the Brothers Grimm fairy tale, The Elves and the Shoemaker. We have naturally gravitated into anthropomorphizing our invisible shipmate and have named him Nick. Unlike the elves in the fairy tale, most of the time Nick is more of a nuisance than a help. He has a proclivity for disappearing useful objects right when they're needed, and most of the time returns them in bizarre places that startle us when we come upon them. Nick has an incredibly varied bag of tricks, and we can never second-guess him. But I must admit, in a perverse way, I enjoy the surprises. But most importantly, it's taught me that I don't have the slightest grip on reality, nor a rigid belief in what we call the laws of nature. Forget the standard model of physics, and I'm forced to admit that I control absolutely nothing at all. Free will, predeterminism, mind-body duality, non-duality, who knows? Regardless, Nick is a high-octane fuel for my sense of wonder. He keeps me on my toes, and I've come to accept that a search for deeper meaning is futile. The intellect seems an inappropriate tool for the task at hand, so I've been cajoled into letting go. I've learned not to sweat it about the dichotomies of normal, paranormal, physics, metaphysics, mind-body duality, seat of conscience, arrow of time, and on, ad infinitum. It would be so easy for a skeptic to sneer and belittle the vanishing nut experience and label it as the raving of an unstable mind prone to delusions. But in reality, most people at one time or another in their lives have experienced events of this nature. Most people simply erase them after scratching their heads a bit. They just don't fit into our rigid sense of reality and how things should comport themselves. To accept them at face value would be too cognitively destabilizing. However, if we are a rare free spirit with healthy curiosity, we might find ourselves marveling at a much more fascinating world than we normally allow ourselves to experience. If you want to watch some real jaw-droppers, check out some of the other clips on Aboard Ron YouTube channel. We trust you'll be amused, if not bemused. Thank you.